Hope y'all know it's been a minute since I've been on cam, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this right now. In terms of what's going on with me, I guess I'll do an update before I get into any type of thing of substance. That's usually how things trickle into what they're supposed to be. I've gotten to a point where certain things have moved in and out of where I had them. And of course, those things that are outside of my control are usually those things that are most important for me to observe so that I learn it. Continuing on though, I've got music stuff going relatively well. If you haven't seen any of that, you should check out the rest of my page and check that out, because my music's it's different, not necessarily it's just it's its own life, so you should definitely check it out. I'm not following anybody's path with it. In terms of friends and getting off the ground and stuff like that, that's moving along smoothly. I've made a few connections recently. I'll probably be making some more that may involve tours. Other than that, I'm trying to consider my next business trip will probably be out to Texas, more than likely. I need to make one to Texas and Louisiana, the Bible Belt, as you might want to call it. Eventually, I'm probably going to make it back up north, but for now, north it's on the back burner, so to speak. Comic books is coming along relatively well. I expect that because of the content and what it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit slower than some of my other projects. And I am potentially doing a show in May. I'm waiting for a call back on that one, and then of course I probably need to be working on some more artwork. I've actually made a few different pictures recently, and if you'd like to check those out, make sure you check out artlife@jtg.com. Just kidding. Just go to Instagram and go to artlifejtg, and you will see some of my older stuff, but then also some of my new stuff. In terms of music, I'll be dropping sometime this week, and more than likely I'll be making a music video within the next 3. So things are going relatively well with that. I'm at a point psychologically where I'm learning where to apply and where not to apply those things that intrinsically, by both my birthright and also my person and my understanding, where the perfect cross is for implementation, so that it causes the least amount of negativity with the most amount of positivity and the most amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Productivity is really what it is. I think that in terms of my mind frame, I think productivity is a major asset, or a major, facet, that's the word, facet, English, right? Is a major facet of what I care about versus those things that a lot of people concern themselves with. And that's not a jab or anything like that. It's really just a matter of fact. In terms of my love life, emotionally and things like that, I could do without, and I wouldn't be too sad about it. I feel like I could have an animal within that frame of things, yet I'm still not over what happened to my last animal, so I'm working my way into either a reptile or a canine, more than likely. I'm not going to be discriminatory towards an animal that I connect with, so that's what that is. In terms of where I am and what my interests are, My biggest thing is keeping my mind and my body in concert with each other versus the tug one way or another. Because in terms of my age, I'm 26, so I'll be 27 this year, and I have a very high sex drive, which is fine and good because I mean that contributes to my ability to be active all the time. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunity for things to be distracting for me, and I'm getting to a point where I have control over that part of my life versus it being something that, like a teenager, they experience stuff and it's not something they're necessarily controlling, it's something that they're experiencing, and usually it's, more or less in a positive fashion, but not necessarily something that they are experiencing for a purpose and then continuing on with their other purposes. So I'm not going to say that I'm finding my purposes, but I'm aligning my purposes in order so that it makes sense and it runs smoothly, especially because over the last 5 years, I've been incorporating a ton of different people's needs and purposes and desires and wants all into that which is me. Yet, I've not been focusing very much on myself. So, as of now, especially today, actually, um, I've gotten to a point where I feel okay with just focusing on myself, and I don't feel um, like the burden of having to make up for that which others are missing. Now, does that mean I'm going to ignore that? No. I definitely am working on actually a curriculum right now, which is free. Yet, I have different courses that won't be free just because, of course, I still need to live. Yet, I've not had a problem with sustaining myself one way or another yet. Of course, that's still a major concern within the mind frames of people, of the average person especially. So, in terms of making things happen, though, for the most part, it's free. And it is for everyone. It's from the age ranges of about 5 to 65. I'll probably just bump it up to 70 and leave it there. There are actually older people that are still willing to learn, and of course, that's a contributing opportunity as well. I actually had a conversation recently with an older man. He was 62, I believe, and after having that conversation with me, he was actually asking me questions about my amount of knowledge because it goes pretty deep. Um, and it ranges from like different needs and purposes, in different stages of life, which you can categorize all different types of ways. You don't have to go with the standard, but the standard is the easiest to communicate off of just because the most amount of people are educated with that standard. So, excuse me, in terms of what I'm attempting to address, it is involving interpersonal skills, especially. That's number one. Number two is future preparation. Number three is self consciousness, and number four is mass consciousness. So, with all those things, there's a lot of here and there as to what will be addressed within that, ranging from coding, which of course is about not animatronic, but um, electrical, and well, you could call it electrical, but it's really just about perception. Perception of something that is physical versus and also in things that are in one way or another. So there's that. And then also in terms of the other things that I'm addressing, it is interpersonal, which has to do with some of the recent issues that we've been having in society, which ranges from the shootings, the suicide, and really just the lack of a push towards people being more social, especially younger people, and that really has to do with the fact that, in more, I'll say the more recent vintage stage of things, i.e., let's say the 40s to the 60s, even though it was the Industrial Revolution, there wasn't much of a distraction as social media is, social media, television, things like that. So there was not a need for an incentive for people to need to understand each other or be connected to each other, versus now, which, of course there's social media, and, technically we're being social through social media, but that doesn't necessarily replace the electrical, physical, emotional, and whatever else have you that happens directly through the physical vessel of a human being. So, by that being something that's kind of unique and new, in terms of something that needs to be addressed within human beings, it is something that I'm going to express, just so that younger people have an idea of the possibility for the direction to be, and to give them an opportunity to have an outlet versus them just being dumb. And I just say that because that's the easiest way to say it. Just being dumb and not knowing, that there are options, what those options are. It's kind of like, let's go into like Native American theology for a second. And I'm not going to go into super specifics, but there's the story of the man and the woman, and they were born different, and they just so happened to discover that one had something between their legs and the other had something between their legs, and nobody told them about this. So they just started exploring different ways that this could be some type of way, and eventually they got one into the other. And so just like one into the other, that's like a 1 in 10 shot, right? And I'm trying not to be extra with this analogy, but it kind of makes sense, right? So, in terms of, us as growing people from our childhood up until our adult selves, there is so many different interpretations that could be possible for a human to have, and that's not a bad thing. Everybody needs to have their own version of individuality, but when it explodes into an issue of violence or an issue of self rejection, even to the point where you have young people not understanding their power, really. And by power, I specifically mean, understanding and loving themselves, and understanding that they themselves are everything that could be, right? Even though, of course, we're living our individual selves. So there, I mean, it gets complicated. That's going from age 15 to age 23. Like, that's a different curriculum, right? Um, but basically, what I'm saying is, I'm providing an opportunity for people to better understand themselves, and there's no need for me to push it upon people, because that's impossible. You can't push anything on anybody else. Like, if they don't want to do it, if they don't want to accept it, then they won't. So, in terms of understanding and those, the things that my background, but I'm not going to get into my background in this video because it's starting to get long. But basically, just providing a platform for those who have moved past following the crowd but have no knowledge, and that's what Omika's Fire is about. So, and continuing on with that, that's probably my biggest philanthropic movement aside from my water filters, which I've gotten pretty far into, which is good. I'll be working on my formulations of my edibles soon, which is good. I've got a few different hands in a few different places doing different things, um, all legally, thankfully, so I don't have to worry about any type of backlash from that. And in terms of my movement within the industries or next to the industries, I'll say, uh, that's going pretty well. You should listen to me sing because it sounds like angels. Just kidding. Or am I kidding? You never know. So anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling now, just because I feel like this is a one-way train, and my train of thought is finito for now. I, you know, I'm not trying to babble. I just need to make sure that I'm trying to stay more consistent with my postings. So, anyway, Samir Dapatry, peace, love, happiness, success, all that good stuff. Yeah, peace.